Welcome to Hard Boiled, the podcast that plunges into the wild world of event planning. Get ready to uncover the secrets behind crafting unforgettable experiences. Hear some fun inside stories as we explore the heart and soul of event planning with luxury planning guru, Louis Avanti. This is gonna be a fun ride.
All right, everybody, here we are for another episode of Hard Boiled, the podcast that is uncut, uncensored, and gives reality within the wedding industry. I am actually today with a very good friend and an amazingly talented performer, Douglas Genuard. He has a company called Douglas James Entertainment. I've known Doug for over 20 years. He is a spectacular musician, an amazing MC, and of course, a great host to any event. He really knows his stuff really, really well. Doug, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure, Louis.
So, Doug, we're going to talk about a few things, in the industry. Tell me a little bit about how you started in the industry, and what brought you. I see a lot of guitars behind there, but we'll get to that later. But tell me a little about how you started in the industry. I'll cut you off if it gets boring. Don't worry.
Sure.
Started playing guitar when I was 11 years old. Loved music. And then I started playing rock guitar, the Led Zeppelin and all those classic rock bands. I had a great guitar teacher, Kenny Lee, who used to teach me all the Zeppelin riffs, and that really opened the door for me into music. And then I started writing music and playing in original bands back in the 80s. And then I needed to make money. So I looked at an ad in an Italian newspaper. And what's that called again?
The Progresso at that time, yeah.
Progresso, yeah. And there was a audition for an Italian wedding band. So the singer, Carmine, who I'm still friends with today, he picks me up in his Alfa Romero car and takes me to Queens. And we go to this basement. Everyone's smoking. And they have the Italian...
Of course. Everybody was smoking back then. Yeah.
Yeah, they have the Italian speakers, Lombardi speakers. Mm-hmm. And actually, that was the first powered speaker, right? That it was ever made. It's coming from Italy.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
So they liked me, and I started doing Italian-American, mostly Italian weddings back in the mid '80s, and that opened the door into this whole wedding market. And then I got an audition to work at a Russian restaurant in Brighton Beach, and then that opened the door to the whole Russian Ukrainian community. And I spent some time there, built my name up, and then I started my company. I saw great potential in that particular niche, that market, and it's been just a beautiful journey. I've traveled literally everywhere in the world, from Australia to Belgium, Turkey, to Amalfi Coast, to Florence, to Mexico, probably about 100 times doing destination parties. And it's been just an amazing journey. So I'm really...
It sounds really cool. A lot of musicians that start in the industry, I guess, start like that, playing like in a band, and then they eventually go into the wedding industry and get the wedding band. But a lot of guys don't take it seriously in the sense that they never pass beyond just being like a studio musician. It's like they're like a weekend gig, right? They play in a band on the weekend, and then, I don't know, they're like a pharmacist Monday to Friday, right? And there are very few people that actually do it full time successfully, right? Most of the corporations, big companies, that control the wedding market in the United States, do that, and very lucrative. You're more of a, I want to say, specialty kind of boutique-ish operation, right? All the musicians are handpicked by you. You don't call, find a drummer on your list and say, you guys available on Saturday to do a gig at this hotel. And I'm not saying all bands do that, but Doug's band is all handpicked. So there's a big difference when you work with the same people all the time and you actually have a band that, is together and you have relationships. I also find that a lot of people in your band that I work with all the time, and, my favorite people to work with, they're all friendly. They're all to the sense that, we are all friends getting together to sing at a wedding, right? Rather than coming in with just like a face and saying, okay, let me do my gig tonight. Let me play horns. Let me, play guitar. Let me sing my song, and let me get out of here. It's different. The different kind of vibe with your band than I see in other bands. So, going through this illustrious career, like, tell me a little bit about what's the most somebody has ever paid you. And you don't have to give me a number. You can say south of this and north of that. right? To, for your band, because I need to, I need to show value from your, from the perspective of somebody listening to this, of the kind of the caliber of people that you work with.
Right. Right. So I've been luckily doing a lot of corporate events over the years, and we were able to open up for people like Duran Duran, Neo, Pitbull, Diana Ross, CZ Top. We've opened up for some amazing artists, J Lo, Christina Aguilera. We worked side by side with a lot of these big acts, and a lot of somehow I got involved in a very high end niche market that they see us like. I think the perfect word that you said was a boutique company, because I put a lot. I am hands on with my clients, so it's not like you come to
Right.
Douglas James and there's 15 bands and you're gonna talk to this guy. I'm going to be directly working with you and fulfilling your vision, so that we're going to get together. I'm going to understand the music playlist of what you love, what you don't love, do not playlist. And we try to create a experience that is not just, let's say, a wedding, but it's your wedding. I want
Right.
to really personalize it so they walk away feeling like that was nothing we've ever seen before. That was shaped to our crowd, to our taste of music, and adding personalization on top of it, and creating more emotion throughout the night is a
That
very important aspect.
No, and I know you do that really, really well. But the question was, what did they most ever
Yes,
paid you for
I'm getting there. And
it?
so I had to sign an NDO, so I actually can't talk about the specifics, but it was north of 200K for an event, for one
Oh,
wedding
so
and a
that's
two.
so that well, it just shows that you were worth the money, right?
Yeah,
When
it was.
someone is spending that kind of money on entertainment, there are only two reasons, right? One, obviously they can afford it, and the second reason they chose you, because for that kind of money you can have anybody, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
for that kind of, yeah, that's how you have to look at it, right? For that kind of money, you can have anybody, and I can afford it, so this is who I choose. So I guess that's a kudos to you and your career and your background and things that you've done over the years. Um, if I had to look, I know you work a lot in New York City as well, and you work in Miami, you work in Mexico, like you said. But if I had to ask you, what is a favorite venue that you have and why? Like if you had
Ah,
to,
sure. I definitely love Crystal Plaza in Livingston, New Jersey. I have a great
right,
relationship with the staff and the owners for many, many years, and I feel like there are certain venues that just have great energy, and I always have great parties. Like there's a certain warmth about the room. The staff, they run a tight ship, makes my life a little easier, and that's one of the places. The Grove also is a great venue. I would say those are my top two. Rock Lake Country Club, also a nice venue there. As far as Manhattan is concerned, we just did a job, you and I, in Cipriani's. You can't get better than that.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. So
Um,
I like I love the space at Cipriani, the way the room is set up. It's so big and so wide and so like massive. It's kind of cool. But the other venues are just as beautiful. So that's a really good answer to that question. And if you had to put together, let's say, your dream event, and somebody said, "Hey, Douglas, I'm having a wedding here, and 250, 300 guests, you do it. You put together this, make this amazing for me. I don't care what it cost." And obviously, there are limitations to everything because you can't charge $1 million, and not talking about bringing in a headliner. We're talking about putting together great production and great feeling. You know how what would that look like?
First thing I would do is ask the client their vision, also
Oh,
the
no vision.
demographics.
Totally up to you.
Yeah.
Totally up to you. I want
But
everybody blown away. Not
demographics.
about me, about everybody else that's attending.
Yeah.
You
But
know when
I
you know
always
when you
ask
go
them.
when you go see a concert, right? The band that produces the concert puts together the vision for you. I just saw Backstreet Boys at the Sphere, right? I hope to see Bruno Mars now at the Romantic Tour. I've seen Madonna, I've seen Ricky Martin, I've seen Pitbull, I've seen a lot of people in concerts over the years, right? And they pretty much set your vision for what you're going to see. What would be your vision?
Gotcha.
Like, what would be
So
your
my vision for an awesome band would be five horn players, big sound with the
Right.
horns. I would have a drummer, keyboardist, bass player, guitar player. I would have at least three female singers and three male singers up on the
Cool.
front row.
Cool.
I would have a violinist, female violinist that interacts with the crowd also, and a percussion player.
How do you feel? Well, that's a pretty big band. Was that like 20 piece? Sounds like a 20 piece.
It's
Sounds like
around like maybe
a
15, 16 pieces.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
15 to 20 piece orchestra. That's an orchestra.
yeah.
It's beyond the band. So you
Oh,
feel
and
that
I would add a DJ on top of that
okay.
because
Well, yeah, that's
when I MC the parties, I like the hybrid of the DJ band thing because in the beginning before I introduce parents, bridal party, bride and groom, or just a bride and groom, I like to get everyone to engage into that introduction. So I get everyone to stand up. I get everyone to stand at the edge of the perimeter of the dance floor. So this way, when the bride and groom enter the room, they really feel the presence of their guest there. So I
correct.
always like having the DJ next to the band because he could like do all those little fills and music, and it's just smoother that way than the actual band have to go from one song to another. DJ easier. Plus, there are certain types of music in today's market that is like EDM, for instance. Like a
Correct.
live band won't necessarily play EDM properly. It could sound a little cheesy. So what we do, and I have a studio here, as you can see behind me, all these guitars, and we come up with instrumental tracks of the EDM songs, just the way you would see Bruno Mars or Madonna in concert. They have a
Right.
live band, but they also the band plays over tracks. So it works seamlessly, and no one's going to know the difference, but the sound is going to be more closer to what you're used
Right.
to
Closer to what
hearing.
closer to the expectation, right?
Yes.
Right. I
Yeah.
think a lot of times when and it's funny. Yesterday I did I did like a rating of like entertainment for not the podcast for some promos, and one of the things was solo DJ and MC, band, band hybrid. I had to rate them 1 to 10, and I rated it as band with a DJ being number one, 10 out of 10, right? Because for the same exact reason that you just mentioned. And I work with the bands that sometimes don't have a DJ, and I'm not saying they're lacking in any which way, but they do have a void, right? There's a void there, right? There's a void on how the how they transition, right, between music and between songs. And I was talking to another band leader a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me, I'll ask you the same question. He tells me that the rhythm section of the band is really one of the most important parts of the band because they're the ones that handle the transitions between songs. Is that correct in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean the entire band and the way we work today is we wear in-ear monitors, so
Right.
everyone has in-ears, and the musical director of the band, he basically has a microphone, and he'll call out the songs. Nobody's turning around saying what's next. Everyone hears what the next song is going to be, and he counts off the song. It's so perfectly seamlessly. It's such a nice mellifluous flow from one song to another. That's a huge, huge improvement over the years from where
Right. But
band leaders
is
would have to
is
look
the
at each other. You
right,
know,
but is the rhythm section taking care of that though? Like on the transition when you're singing and you're going to the next song, the rhythm
so
section,
the rhythm section, yes, but the most important guy is your band musical director who's calling the
right.
songs.
But when
So
you have a
what we
DJ, does the DJ do that transition?
Well, the DJ and the keyboard, who is my musical director, are next to each other. So we'll do a live set for 15 minutes, let's say. And if we want to
Right.
transition into some other styles of music that the DJ would do better, where the band would play over those tracks, they
Right.
communicate to each other.
Understood. That
Yeah.
makes sense to me. So if in your opinion today, what's the most underrated or actually overrated? Let's go with overrated first. What's the most overrated musical element at a wedding? What's something
Overrated.
it's okay, but people put too much, you know, you know, I guess they want it, but it's really not that important
As far as a singer or a musician,
as far as anything.
mm,
The most overrated musical, item? Is it like having a horn section? Is that overrated? Is it that is that you go, would a band tell me that I have to have a horn section? Is it, having multiple female singers as you mentioned before? Um, DJ covers a lot of like other music as well. So if I had to say, let's talk about full bands now because that's what you really are. What's the most overrated element?
That's a hard question to answer
It
because
is a hard question.
I think all of the elements that we offer are important, but it's really the client that what they particularly their vision and what they like. So I could offer just a sax player. So if they don't feel they have the budget for a 15-piece band, I could do an 8-piece band, with just a sax and no horns. So if they have requests of like a great horror, Jewish dance, Earth, Wind and Fire, Motown, Bruno Mars, a lot of those songs lends itself to having a horn section. So I would
It does,
actually
right.
explain to the client how important that would be for them. But if they tell me they like popular dance, EDM music, I would say, okay, but they still like the live band. I would say, we don't need a full live band. Let's just do a female singer, male singer, myself. Let's do drum, bass, keyboards, guitar, sax, and DJ. I would do something like that.
How important? So talking about going from an 8-piece to like a 15-piece band is like the horn section overrated if you're not going to use or not going to have certain kind of music? Is it something that's really unnecessary overall, but is necessary only for certain genres?
I think if it's
Like, for example, if
first,
I didn't have a horn section at my wedding, would I notice that I didn't have a horn section?
it all depends on the music that we're playing. So
Especially if I have a DJ.
yeah, if you have a DJ, yeah, it's questionable because aesthetics is also something that a lot of clients like when guests enter the room and that you see a full band on the stage. You see three
Right.
or four horn players. It's impressive. It's like, oh, we're gonna have a great time today. Look at that
Right.
band.
Right. It's the visuals of the band, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
sometimes the visuals of the band, I remember years ago, you and I were talking, talking about society bands and doing bands that, as you were building your band, many years ago also, I was saying, don't let them look at their phones, don't let them talk to each other, don't let them converse because, somebody's looking, right? Somebody's watching, and I know that your band doesn't do that now, but I still see bands, not your band, but other bands that are so like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're really not in the moment, right? They're not part of what's going on. They're just playing. As a bass player, just playing in the corner, looking down, not being like totally, in the moment. And your band, I feel, is in the moment because they follow the leader, right?
Yeah,
You
a
know,
lot has to do. A lot of that has to do, and how the band performs is also the leadership on my end of how when
what I
I do
said,
my
follow the leader. Yeah,
yeah, when I have my meetings and I put care into each job, even like keyboard player says, I love the fact that every job we wing it. We actually customize playlists for that particular party.
right.
So they know how much care I put into it. So when we get to the job, we'll have a quick little meeting before the guests enter the room. We'll get each other excited, and it's 4 hours. And out of the 4 hours, you have the peaks and valleys. So peaks are your dancing, valleys are
Of course,
introductions, main chorus, toasts,
of course.
parents
Your picks are
dance. So if you look at the actual time that we're on the stage, it may end up just 2.5 hours, let's say, of music. So
whatever it
that's
is, right? It's all you need at the end of the day,
yeah,
right? It's
true.
not by choice, you know.
So
Well, and
I expect my guys to smile, to be focused on what's happening, even when there's a toast. Like in the band is on the stage, don't be looking at your phone. Don't turn to the person, have a
right,
conversation.
that you and I
Look,
discussed
look.
this over the years, yeah, because
Yeah,
somebody's looking, right? Somebody's
exactly.
looking at it, someone's noticing it, and that's really what defines, in my opinion, professionalism from unprofessionalism. And
Yeah.
I think that as we go on in life and everything that we do, we are products of our environment, right? If we do very high end events, we become high end ourselves. If we start doing sloppy, cheaper, less expensive events, even though you're still making money, we become a little bit like them because we're out of place being too proper, right? So being lax and being like less involved, less in the moment has to do where you perform.
Yeah,
right? I
100%,
always,
100%. And
and
that
I always say
actually,
that, yeah,
that goes for everything in life, because
in
in
everything in life,
sports, yeah, in
yeah,
sports, I used to play paddleball, for
right,
instance, and when we used to play against guys that were not good at all, our game went down, and we're like, why are we playing sloppy? But then we
right.
played against people that were like two, three times better than us. We stepped up our game. So I feel like, when you have a high end client, when you hire really top tier musicians, everyone's game is going to be up at that
Right.
point.
Yeah, because there's a certain level of there's an expectation, right? Because of where you are, for who you're doing it for, you feel sort of proud. It's like saying, you're a waiter at a venue in South Jersey. If anybody will listen to this, like nationwide, South Jersey is beautiful, but it's not at the level, let's say, of Northern New Jersey or New York City. Same thing goes for LA, and same thing goes for Miami and etc. But when you're working at a high end venue and you're working with a a client that not only has the dollars but has the sophistication, the expectation, you tend to feel you puff your chest out a little bit more, right? I'm here, I'm special, and I always tell everybody, and people always bitch in the industry and they go, oh, look at the fucking DJ, look at the band, the fucking guys are playing 4 hours, they're out of here, they're making so much money. And I always try to tell them, dude, do you know how hard that is? Do you know how hard it is to go on stage, look around, and see 200 people looking at you and say, all right, come on, entertain me. Come on, make me happy. You think about the hard jobs in the event industry. The hardest job is what you do, right? Because
And you
you
always have to be on your game. You
you have
always
no
have to be on your game.
choice.
Yeah.
You have no choice. You're going to be blamed whether this party is amazing or whether this party sucks. I won't be, right? I'll just say this is what happened, right? Of course, timing and all the stuff that I do, is important and adds to the party. That's why I like to work with people like you, because you make me look good. But, you know, some things don't get the blame of it, but you always get the brunt, right? And it always marveled me when there are bands out there, even like I've done weddings with like bands that are very expensive, very reputable, and they absolutely sucked because they were not in the moment. They just played their same playlist without listening to the client, without diversifying from the crowd, and just doing the same exact thing. Not cheesy, but just the wrong music for the wrong people, right? And your job is to get up there. I mean, you do a lot of homework in between. You don't just show up, right? And this goes up for a lot of people out there listening to this. Um, and hopefully will become a promo. Just because a band costs a lot of money, it doesn't mean they're great at what they do, right? There's an assumption that they're great at what they do to charge that kind of money. But sometimes they charge that kind of money because they're in that market, that's what a band is expected to cost. But they're not always great. They may play the same exact thing all the time because they just take everyone and make them say, this is what people want to hear. So they'll play their same repertoire, even they're not getting a reaction from the crowd. No love, no care, no sense of responsibility has gone in their preparation, right? They say, this is what we do, and the clients just hire them for the reputation and the name. And at the end of the day, I look at myself and I say, oh my God, they suck. And some people dance out of courtesy, and I can tell, right? Because they just want to show that they're being entertained and they're part of the party. But a lot of people, dance floor is never full, right? And the bride and groom really don't know. Because at the end of the day, people are going to say, oh, your wedding was amazing. Because you don't tell a client or a couple or a friend, hey, your wedding, your band really sucked, man. I wish that you had a better band. They don't know. So,
Mm.
but eventually they'll look at their footage. They'll look at their pictures. They'll get a sense.
Yeah.
Douglas, I had a bride's mother come to me. I won't mention, names or anything, but she looked at me on the day of the wedding and she goes, hey, the band is good, but they're not great. And I said, your dance floor is packed. I didn't give them the band, right? They did it on their own.
Mhm.
And she said, the band is good, but they're not great. you know, and then she never hired them for another wedding that we did for them, right? They actually hired you. But but when I look at the another event that I did, the band was so bad that they did not only that they played every song out to the end. You know, every song was
Oh,
extended.
yeah.
So
That's not good.
if they played September, just a wild example, I don't even think they played that, but if they did, it was like the extended dance version of September.
Well, that's one of my pet peeves
Oh
when we
my
work
God,
together.
I was going to go nuts.
Yeah.
And thank God, our DJ that we both know, a friend of both of us, saved the party by
Hmm.
putting together an amazing after party where people were so starved to dance, and he played all the right music, and everybody got up and they went crazy, right? But I just could not understand how this band sucked so much,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's a band leader not really reading the crowd properly and not doing his homework. Yeah, like I
They
said
did no
before, I
homework.
always
They did no homework.
yeah,
Yeah.
I always sit down with my clients, several video chats with them to go over music. I ask them to put together a Spotify playlist. I give them Spotify playlists of popular songs to get started, and they'll make their
Right.
own playlist of like 40, 50 songs so I can see what style of music they like. And then on my Google document, I'll put like must play songs because I want to make sure that there's like 10 songs that the bride really loves. And then, of course, the do not play songs. And you know, the funny thing about the do not play, I don't know what it is, but like Taylor Swift and Bruno Mars, always. I get that from clients.
That is, you know, it's such a weird thing for me when that happens, and I agree with you. I don't understand how people don't like Bruno.
Yeah,
I think he's the most talented, most danceable material ever,
yeah, I
right?
agree. I think he has new song that just came out that I'm learning. It's a really great song.
Phenomenal. I know it's great. All
Yeah,
this stuff is
yeah,
good. Taylor, I can get because she's more of a ballad girl, and there are some songs that are danceable. But I get Taylor Swift to a certain extent, even though she's super popular. But I don't understand Bruno.
yeah. That's
I
it.
don't get the whole like
It's
the hate Bruno Mars thing, right? You know,
I don't know. Maybe he's just too popular. I'm not sure.
I don't know what it is, but yet you can't get into his concert, right? So somebody's
Yeah,
going, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So getting back to what you're saying about staying on a song too long, that is one of my pet peeves. Like when we work live with the band and the DJ, we do like verse, chorus, bam, next song.
you have to because
You know?
it's like a great mashup, right? If you, so I always tell people, I said this band does this. So if you hate the song, you can stay because it's not going to be that long. If you love the song, enjoy it
Yeah.
because the next
It,
song
it
will be great as well, right?
yeah, there's exceptions to that rule. Sometimes there's certain types of songs and you see the reaction of the crowd going nuts. So you don't want to pull the plug that quick.
Right, like a Journey song or things that people really super react to, and they're waiting for the third chorus to come up. Right,
Right?
I
Yeah, yeah,
understand that. I understand that.
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. I
Also,
understand that.
something you mentioned before about a dance floor not being packed. So one thing that I think is so important as an event planner,
Yeah.
I'm sure you know this and you advise your clients, is that sometimes we get a client that books a venue and the dance floor could literally put like 400 people there, and they
No,
end up having 100.
I always make it small. I always do.
Yeah, exactly. That's so
Yeah.
important because you have 150 guests in a dance floor that could fit 400 people. That dance floor is never going to look full all night.
This is
So,
what I listen. You've been to all my weddings, right? That I've done, but you know that I either put furniture on the dance floor, I
mhm.
will make it smaller if it's like marble from the venue, and and I hate. So if you're one of my clients and you're the mom, just listen to what I'm saying now. I love you, but I hate when people tell me we want a big dance floor because we want a lot of room to dance. And I go, no, you don't. You want the right size dance floor because it's better if there's almost no room to dance because everybody we're going to feel heavy energy rather than too much room. Like you said, you can't fill it,
Yeah.
right? And I hate venues that have preset dance floors. It makes it so difficult to manage because the average wedding size is 200 to 250. You know, there's actually a venue in New Jersey, which I won't mention, that has a dance floor that, is already preset by the, granite, whatever the fuck they have on the floor, right?
Hmm.
And you can't put tables on it because it looks weird. And it fits 400 people. And it's like that dance floor is never going to be full. And it's such a
Yeah.
crime. And it's not the band's fault. If everybody danced, it would still be empty, you know, and it's
It's
such a
yeah.
disservice. And this is
And that's
what I
my
tell people.
that's my
Yeah,
biggest pet peeve, because we want, as a band, we want
of
the dance
course.
floor to look
It's a
packed,
great point. It's a
and
great point.
so I have a question to ask you. I'm doing a destination party in St.
Right.
Bart's, and it's at a hotel, and it's going to be outside. So they have the guests sitting in one area, and then they have the band and myself in a completely different area. So
I'm gonna
how
have
do you?
this issue. I'm gonna have this issue in Europe coming up as well.
Or
How do you do this, right? So
right,
the only way to manage that kind of expectation is that you can't do sit up, get down, sit up, get down, sit up, get down. You just can't do it because
yeah,
the travel time between point A to point B is going to offset the energy that you deliver and that the venue wants to deliver. You're going to have to do European style.
Hmm.
You're going to
Yeah.
have to do you're going to have to do serve dinner, do toast, play background, put music there, make him do 90 minutes of service, right?
right.
And then dance him for 90 minutes of dancing, let him go back for dessert, and let him come back for another hour of straight dancing. That's the only way you're going to be able to manage that,
Yeah,
because
I
the
agree with that. Yeah,
point A to point B is too far.
yeah. I was thinking about when the guests are coming from the cocktail area to the area where the dinner will be served. Maybe get them on the area where we're performing, and then do introductions.
Yeah, yeah. You could start the
Do a
party. You can introduce your first dance. You can even do a first dance set there,
yeah, a
right?
first dance set,
You
and
can
then
really
sit them down for
sit them
dinner,
down for the whole dinner.
and maybe have a little speaker for
Yeah, yeah.
toast
Like I said, a little
and
pop
some
in music,
formalities. Yeah.
some ballads, some background music, you know, some performances. You may be able to go out and go to that area and work with that speaker,
Yep.
right? And entertain them, but definitely let them do all their food. Get the
I
food out of
agree.
the way. Let them have the culinary experience,
Exactly.
and then
Yeah.
let them have the dance party, right?
Yeah.
You
And we
know,
could maybe do cake, near where we're performing, somewhere in that area.
right? Yeah, yeah. You could move that
Yeah.
around. That's dessert. But that's a good question. You know, when you have this separation of the way the venue, you know, separates things. In this case, for example, the venue has no concern whatsoever. Here are you and I talking about it, and it's good information, but the venue doesn't know. The venue doesn't care. The venue should be just concentrated on food and beverage, right? Um, and the venue that has a dance floor that's too big for the amount of guests they have in the room never tells the client, hey, by the way, guys, you know, the room fits 350, you have 225. So, yeah, that's going to be great. You'll have plenty of room. Your tables won't be on top of each other, but our dance floor is going to make anybody you hire look like they suck. So I
Yeah.
recommend that you move the dance floor or shorten it. The venue will never does that. The venue says, that's your dance floor.
They don't care.
That's
They
your
don't
band.
care.
No, they
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
And
They
I
don't care.
always tell people, God, if you don't have a great planner or you don't have a great band leader like you, right, that will say, look, this is going to be problematic, not just for me, but it's going to be problematic for you because I can't do my job at the highest level possible because these logistics, this setup, this physical space doesn't allow me to, right? Because who's telling them that? You are, right? Maybe at one point, right? But how do you fix it?
Couples don't know. They look at a venue and they just see a beautiful room, and they're not thinking like the way we think.
And the venue doesn't tell them because
No.
they want the sale, right? I mean, we have beautiful rooms that we work in, even in in New Jersey, but we just never are able to tell. You know, the venue will never tell them. You know, you have to do this if you have this amount of guests. They're just going to walk into the room, and Douglas, you have no idea how many bands every weekend will walk into a new room without a site inspection and look at this massive dance floor and just play
Yeah.
because
So
it doesn't
that's
become their
another.
problem. So
Yeah.
you have
That's another.
all these people concentrated in the front of the dance floor, and all the people in the back have nobody there for 25 feet of empty space, right? It's so weird. It's so ineffective, and the energy is so low.
Yeah. So
You know?
these are all the things that create a great party is logistics and a floor layout and the size of the dance floor. Also, when you mentioned site survey, I know most of the venues in the tri-state area, but if I don't, I will personally
I
take a
know.
drive out. I'll see the room because I need to see the acoustics of the room. Is the floor marble? Is it carpet? Is it like so? Because I have different types of speaker setups. So sometimes a line array, if we're working at Legacy Castle, it's a huge room, very high ceilings. We just did an event there, 400 people. So we put a line array sound system. That's the same type of sound system you'll see at like Madison Square Garden. So we
Yeah.
have
So every
these
line array is when the speakers are hanging on the left and right of the band, and they create a
correct.
different musical dimension than not on the floor. For argument's sake, it's not that important to anyone, but the fact that you go ahead and do a site inspection because you care so much about how you're going to sound, obviously is a tremendous, I don't want to say selling point, but it just goes to show the level of professionalism you play at, right?
And
Because,
care
yeah,
because
right. Well,
our clients
professionalism.
hire us, and when they see that we care about their wedding, and it makes I think the relationship we build a relationship, and I
Yeah,
love
but
to
yeah,
see all that work that we put into and that care, and then Monday we wake up and then we get those text messages like, oh my god, this was the best night of my life, you made
right,
our dreams come true. That's one of
right.
the greatest rewards of what we do. A paycheck is one thing, but I think I get more satisfaction when I can
I think you and I,
accomplish.
we both do. We both do.
Yeah.
And I think we live for that in a lot of ways because we're saying, oh my God, these people absolutely loved it. I'm so happy they loved it. Right. And I get tons of like compliments, like when I work with you or when I work with like an event designer that I love, I get the same reaction. I go, this was beautiful. That was beautiful. The band you recommended was amazing. I'm so happy we trusted you. And all that. Overall, that's, that we live for those. We live for those compliments. We live for those reviews. We live for that kind of kudos for all the work we put into.
Yeah. And another thing that's so important for us is when we have a client that trusts us. See, I won't book a job if I feel like they're shopping around, they're not sure, they ask a lot of questions, like or the mother can call me up and like, I want my client to trust us to our services because that makes us our job easier, you know, rather feeling
Well,
that you're
yeah, of course. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
you'll listen, your level of trust. Um, also has to do with people that are working with you, right? We've done a couple of weddings, you and I, where the client didn't know who you were, never saw you perform, but they trust me, right? And I tell them, I said, this is who I would have at my own family wedding. So you have to trust me. And they go, and then they afterwards they go, oh my God, so happy we trusted you because we really didn't know, right? And that's important for you, for me, for anyone that works in the industry. Now I want to get a little nitty gritty. Now I want to talk about some other stuff that, this
sure,
is all beautiful shit and great. But I want you to tell me a story. I know you have at least a couple, but I want you to identify one. Tell me your like nightmare wedding story, right? About a client more than anything else. I know the party was great at the end. I know that all that happens, but even if they tell me a wedding story, a nightmare wedding story, because I think it's fun to hear a little bit about, you know, nightmare wedding stories. Not because we don't, the end result is not good, but you know, nightmare clients are fun, right? Because at the end of the day, we get to talk about them, and they don't. Sometimes they don't know what they're talking about or how they're putting it together, and that's nothing wrong with that. It's an unknown world. But give me a nice nightmare story if you have one.
sure. I would say Hurricane Irene.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know the story already, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
So Hurricane Irene, that was we had a wedding that Sunday afternoon in Philadelphia, and this hurricane came in on Saturday, and I woke up extra early at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I had to call all of my vendors, musicians, sound companies, string quartet, everyone that I hired for that wedding. Half of my crew was out. They were either flooded or the car was flooded. So I got a call from the father. He says to me, Douglas, I go, we have a wedding today? He says, yes, but our catering hall got flooded. So we moved it this morning to another catering venue that has power. And so they had literally had to, like, the caterer, everything had to be transferred. Could you imagine doing this?
That's insane.
Yeah. And so thank God I got up early that day, and I started string quartet. So I Googled string quartet. I found a string quartet in Philly area. They were available. I sent them the songs. They made it.
Nice.
Sound company. I found another sound company that I know from Philadelphia. They were able to do the job for me. And a couple of singers, and I replaced those singers. So actually everything in my contract, I fulfilled every person, but I had to replace half the crew. And the greatest moment of that day, because everyone was under such duress, and I felt so bad for the bride, but we got to
come
the
on,
point.
wake up, and there's a massive hurricane in the Northeast
Yeah.
that's not really common around here on your wedding day after all the days of the year. Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare wedding story for the client more than you, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
came through though.
so the greatest moment that day was when we were doing the horror, and the dance hall was packed, and the bride looks at me with a sigh of relief, and she looks at me with a smile, and she was like, gives me a thumbs up, and I got the chills,
Yeah.
that day, because I felt like I'm so happy, because I think for anyone to hire us for their wedding day or their corporate event, especially weddings, because that's such a milestone in people's lives.
Right.
And it's such a great memory, and we're such a big part of it. Being an event coordinator and a band, music is so important at a wedding. And to see a bride, with that sigh of relief, say we did it, and it was a great moment, and I felt good about myself. I was able to fulfill everything that I had promised in the agreement.
Yeah, and in a moment like that's crazy. I've had situations like that with snowstorms, with 300 people supposed to come and only 120 show up because they can't get their cars out, but the wedding still takes place. That's the wedding industry for you. I actually thought you were going to tell me the story of when you took the ferry in the storm to up in Boston. Didn't you have a situation where you had to take a ferry with Aldo? Like
that was on the way back from the job. So we got to the job. It was not in Boston. It was Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard. Yeah,
Yeah,
Martha's Vineyard in
yeah.
Nantucket or something like that. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was crazy.
we did the job, but so the ferry, we get to the ferry, and the guy's like, "We're full. You have to wait till the next ferry ride." We had a job that day, and
Right, you had to
there was
come back.
no.
You had to come back. You had a job in Brooklyn. I remember that.
Yeah, so no, it was actually Jersey at
Okay.
Molly Pitcher, and I think.
Yeah, it was down here, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how we did it, but we somehow convinced the ferry guy to let our car on, because if we didn't make that ferry, we would never make the job. So, but we were still, because everything was running a little late with the ferry. So ferry took us to the land, and then we had to drive a nice 3-hour drive to the event, straight to the venue.
But
Aldo
that
was
a
literally
that was a
Aldo
storm,
was
wasn't it?
changing. Yeah, Aldo was changing in the car. He was changing in the car. It was hysterical. But
I remember the
we were
story.
like, yeah, I don't know how we didn't get a speeding ticket, but we made it, and that could have been a nightmare. But I think things behind the scenes, a lot of times there's stuff that happens with us that we don't even tell the clients.
No, well, the idea is why there's no reason for the client to know, for one, and two, nothing's going to change, right? Telling the client that this is a situation, we missed the ferry, and we overbooked ourselves, or underbooked ourselves, or couldn't prevent this from happening. I mean, you were heroes for doing it, but that's what the expectation was. They're not going to say to the client, "Oh my God, you don't know what happened to us. Thank God we're here." Right?
Yeah,
They're never going to know.
yeah.
We can talk about it later, as they say, and now we can laugh about it today, right?
Also, sometimes technology or power outages,
Correct.
those are things that are out of our control. I did a wedding in Crystal Plaza some years ago, and it was a snowstorm in October. Do you remember? And
I do.
And
It was Halloween.
and yeah, because there were still leaves on the trees, so all the snow, and eventually it broke a lot of the power lines in the area. So Crystal Plaza had no power. They had generators. So we got to the venue, we plugged into their generating system, but it wasn't powerful enough. So unfortunately, I mean, the sound was there, but you could hear like these like weird sounds coming out of the speakers because there wasn't enough power. But that to me is a nightmare. But we still did the wedding. They were still
Right,
happy
exactly.
at the end
And
of the
there are
day.
things you can't. There are certain things you can never control, right? And thank God they had their own power generation, to prevent or to at least assist it. What's the song you hate to play the most?
That's a good question. What song do I not like to play?
That you have to play, right?
That I have
We
to
really
play.
want that. We really want this song,
Oh,
and you say,
if I have to play, I will survive. Yeah, I think I can hear that. Or gimme, gimme, gimme right now is played out.
right. So
Or
you
all
hate
I
to,
well, not that I hate it. It's just that it's so played out. Like all I need is your love tonight becomes some songs become a crutch, and that's another thing that an entertainment company has to understand is that don't always rely on those songs that you've been relying on for so many years because then you're going to start looking old. You have to know when to say, okay, okay, gimme, great song, but instead of throwing in at the beginning of the night, because that's like a crutch, we know that people are going to dance to that. Let's throw in some other fresh material, making
right.
ourselves look new, and based on the client's playlist, let's throw some of those others played out songs
Correct.
maybe a little later in the night when they're a little more looser. But I think it's important. Yeah. So like, I Will Survive. One of my, I think I can't hear that song again.
Can't you will survive anymore? And
Yeah.
what's your favorite song to sing?
Lately, I love to sing "Lose Control" by Teddy Swims.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw you in a video on one of your Instagram posts singing that. It looks great. It looks great.
yeah,
You do a great Teddy Swims.
love that.
You have the vocals for it. Not
Thanks.
everybody can. Not
So,
everybody can have that range and have that rasp, in their voice. So
and
that's
and
great.
then I
Great.
play
Great.
the guitar with my teeth.
Yeah. Wait. Listen. I want you to play something for me. I want to take out the podcast with you playing something, and it'll come back on for like another couple of minutes. So just grab a guitar, play something
Yeah, but will the
acoustic.
Zoom? Because if I play,
Well,
I know that Zoom.
I hear your voice,
Yeah.
so it should be
Okay.
okay. Do acoustic though,
Okay.
maybe
Um,
acoustic. Well, let's see if it works.
but I just want to tell one more cool story. Okay.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love to do is customize each event.
Right.
So I had a sit down, and most of these days it's all Zoom, going over details.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this
No,
particular
nobody does shit in person. I know.
yeah, but this particular client, they lived near me and they wanted to do it together in person. So I went over to their house and I had both parents from the bride and groom were there. The bride, the groom, and the bride's sister was there, all sitting down. And when we came up to the first dance, I said, "What's your first dance song?" And they chose this like EDM song that was like kind of fast. And
Oh yeah.
the parents like kicking me under the table and my legs, like, please please help us change the song. So I said, guys, this is kind of weird first dance. I said, maybe you could pick something a little slower, I think, because this song, what are you going to do to this fast, upbeat song? And they were like, okay. And I gave them suggestions of really popular wedding songs. They were like, that's not our style at all. So they knew what they wanted, but they didn't have a great song. So I said, how about this? How about we take an EDM song and we turn it into a ballad? So right off the bat, there was one song I thought would sound really nice as a ballad is John Summit, "Where You Are."
Yeah.
So I asked them, "Would you like to do that?" And they said, "We love the idea. It's great." So I called one of my producers, and she did the track for me, and then I sang it in the studio, sent them a copy of it. They fell in love with it, and
Yeah, I know
actually,
it. I've heard it. Yes, beautiful.
yeah, I actually think I need to release that song because I think it's going to go viral because it's a great interpretation of the song, but completely done in a different.
You need to release it.
Yeah, 100%.
1 second. Hold on. I don't know why I'm getting this thing on my Zoom about collaborating. Um, I'm pausing you for 1 second. Resume recording. So I'll try to play something. I know the song, by the way. You did a great version of that. I still think you should have that rap in between and let your nephew do it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So another
But I
cool
think you should
story.
release it alone and with the rap.
Yeah, I just want to do another quick story. So I had a bride getting married in Cipriani's. It was a Saturday in the summer months. I think it was August, and she could not find a cantor. She wanted a cantor to sing her song in Hebrew walking down the aisle. So she calls me up. Do you know anyone? I tried and nobody would do it because they keep the Sabbath. So she's like, could you do it? And I don't speak Hebrew, but I'm always open
Correct.
to try something new.
You
So
sing
I
in every
said, all right.
language.
Yes,
Just
I
another
sing
language.
yeah, I sing Italian, I sing Spanish, English, and a little bit of Russian. And I was like, well, I could try it, you know. So
Right.
there's a beautiful Bocelli song called Con te
Di Partito,
partirò,
yeah.
and there's a Jewish version called Boy Kala, and I decided to record it in my studio. And I had a couple of my friends who speak Hebrew to help me out with the addiction, and I ended up learning the song, and I actually sang it for her walking down the aisle. And ever since then, I've been getting requests to sing the Hebrew song, which I'm doing this weekend, actually.
Yeah, you did it at one of my weddings in
Yeah,
May.
that's right. Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
remember, it was a surprise to the bride and groom. Yeah,
Yeah.
it actually blew up the entire ceremony. That's very
And
true.
that,
It was a great story.
and just a recapitulation of when we started about my company, which is really a boutique company, and these are some of the things that make us different and unique, is the fact that we really care. We put a lot of time and creativity into fulfilling their vision.
Right. Well, you do. You do put a lot of time. You
Yeah,
put a lot of effort, creativity, and you actually care. You're not just another number. I get that.
yeah. Okay, so I have to grab my
Right.
acoustic guitar.
Right. Acoustic.
Hold
Yeah.
on. Okay, one sec.
Hey, thanks so much for taking the time today, explaining about your company. In closing, everyone, understand that bands, music in general, entertainment, let's say not Doug as a band, but let's say in general, music is, and I always stress this, the most important element at the wedding. People don't remember much. And I think that visuals, floral, a lot of details are very important, especially initially part of the wedding, because it sets the tone for who you are, how you want to be remembered, and the room. But people remember experiences, right? They remember how they were treated, how they feel, and how the music make them listen. You don't have to dance to feel the music. You don't have to be, taking your tie off or letting your hair loose and screaming on the dance floor to have a good time. Sometimes just listening to talent and admiring talent and being entertained by live entertainment and having a drink in your hand or whatever it is sets the tone, and walking away from something that was just you had to be part of, especially when you got to look, feel, and hear such amazing talent, is what makes your wedding. And Doug is really at the top of my list when it comes to that. So thank you,
Thank
Doug, for
you.
taking the
Thank you,
time.
Louis. It's been a
Thank you for the
pleasure,
time.
pleasure. And I'll just
Pleasure.
end
It's
it
a lot
with
of fun.
this. I'll end it with this. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what. Wait.
Spring.
Let me do that again. Let me see
Spring.
what spring is like. Okay, wait, one more time. Let me do it again. Ready? I cut that one out.
Even I know that one.
Yeah. Okay, ready? Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter or Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, kiss me. I'll see you at the next wedding, Louis.
There you go. Thanks, buddy.
All right, you got it. Have a good day.